All right, no warm up. Just getting straight into trying to get a video to you guys. So tomorrow, what's the date tomorrow? 18th, I believe. Tomorrow, the 18th, is Saturday, and I will be doing a special deal on Amazon where you can buy my first book, Wasting Talent, on Kindle for $1.99, under $1. It's been like $3 for 6 years, I think. It came out in 2014. This is for the Kindle version. And if you don't have a Kindle, you can download an app on your iPad, iPhone, Android. I think I don't have I'm not an Android person, but you can get a Kindle app and then you can read my book on the phone. It's 99 cents. Even if you've already bought a copy of the book, I'd really like if you could buy this for 99 cents. I'm donating every cent of this to the Paul Project. So on the 21st of this month, so in 4 days from now, I get paid for the first raffle that Sinister and I did. Now I'm going to be doing more raffles. It took for that, like that's when the pay cycle was. That's when we get paid. We haven't been paid for that. We had to come out of pocket for all the expenses for the first raffle. So, and like it's expensive to get the nonprofit going. I'm going to sign up for a mailing list, PO box that people can send the Narcan to me, and we'll be doing more raffles with Sinister. I'm also going to be doing one with Mickey Avalon, probably some other guys too, just giving away art or signed memorabilia, whatever it is. So the Kindle version for 99 cents is all going towards that. It's only available for 3 days. So if you can remember, tomorrow at 8 a.m., well, for Patreon, for YouTube, I'll do a separate video on YouTube about this. But if you guys can check Amazon tomorrow, I'll post the link on Patreon. And if you can buy the Kindle for $1, it'd be really helpful. And also, if you use the Amazon app, it won't let you buy Kindle books. You have to actually go on like the internet browser that you're using. So just go to Amazon.com. Book's called Wasting Talent. And for 3 days, I'm going to have the book for $1, and every cent of that is going towards my nonprofit. The 21st, which is in a few days, I'm getting the money for the first raffle, and I'm going to set up the nonprofit, which costs like $500 or $600. And then I'm going to do all the other stuff that I was talking about. And then I'm also going to put Drug Story for Truckers on Spotify, iTunes, all that stuff. And all the proceeds from that will go to my nonprofit as well. So the only revenue that I'm keeping is my YouTube AdSense, my Patreon, and the audio version of my book. I give the paperback to send free copies to inmates that are in prison. And the Kindle, I'm going to just start donating forever to the Paul Project. But I'm going to kick it off with a special promotion where you get it $1 for a few days. So if you can do that, like I said, even if you already have the book, the more people that buy it, it can get bumped up on the bestseller list, and we can raise money for this. And then we'll actually start sending it out within, I don't know, the next week or two. I'd like to be like fully going by early next month. It takes a while for the Secretary of State to approve the nonprofit status. It's important to have that because it gives us all sorts of benefits to raise money, for this cause. I tried to do a nonprofit in 2000, and we're getting into that, the Prodigy Foundation, in this series. And then I went to prison. Prison reform is like a really ambitious goal, but giving free Narcan to addicts is a much more immediate, positive impact that we can make into the community for people. Even if you've been sober for 10 years and you have a history of opioid dependency, having Narcan in your house is really important. I lost one of my best friends in November. Really one of my best friends. Everyone always says that, like when, someone died, oh, that guy was my best friend. Paul really was. Him and Jeff were like my best friends, those two. Jeff and I got sober. Paul, struggled throughout his life, just like I have, and he didn't make it. So I feel like if I have a platform and I can help people get Narcan, something I should do in his honor. Sorry for the long introduction. I just feel like this particular thing is important, and we'll be doing those raffles soon. Maybe before we get the 502, the nonprofit status. I'm not sure. I want to see what we have to do on the 21st when we get our first chunk of charity money that we've raised. So like, comment, subscribe, check out Patreon. All the links are in the pinned comments. And like I said, I don't have a timer anymore because I use Zoom to record these because it's like such a small amount of memory that it takes up, so it uploads way faster. It just like compresses it automatically, but it doesn't tell me how long I've been recording. So I may have been talking for like 10 minutes already. I don't even know. So where we had left off last time, I was down in LA, and my ex-wife had called me crying, saying that she was dope sick off Suboxone. Who knows if that's true or not. Same person who essentially tried to get my film deal fucked up with her ex-boyfriend. You know, he said that I beat her, which I never have, honest to God. I like never have even spit on her. And for me, not spitting on someone I was in a relationship with is like, that's award worthy. You know what I'm saying? I'm a piece of shit. But I never even did that. I didn't do anything. Verbally abusive, yes, but that's not illegal. I'm not saying it's good, but it's not illegal. So she had tried to disrupt my movie deal. She had tried to keep me in prison, or her mom. Her mom has talked to me and swears up and down that she didn't do that. But unless my ex-wife did the email and pretended to be her mom, which I would not put it past that woman. She is like cold like that. I don't know. That family's just so weird. But even with all that being said, I still had empathy, and I just happened to be there at the same time, and I had Suboxone. So it's like, it didn't seem like it was that far to my way. Plus Zach was paying for me to get back. When I get there, as I was talking about at the end of the last video, there's these two skinheads. Literally, like, one of them has a swastika, some like shitty soot like that, shitty prison work swastika, which I've said like multiple times. You never see a skinhead in outside of captivity tanning on a beach towel with a swastika on their neck. He had like tan lines when he was like tanning with his swastika tattoo. But yeah, I mean, you don't see those kind of guys that often. But they were looking at me, mean mugging me. And she got out there and she told me that, that the guys were mad at me. I'm like, what do you mean? Mad at me for what? She's like, they know about you. They know about, what do they know? Did you tell them I have a small dick? She's like, they know what you did to me. Like, what did I do to you? I mean, what, the apartment that I rented us? The risk that I took smuggling tobacco into prison so that I could pay your rent, never abusing you. Which one of those things did I do to you that would warrant someone else being mad at me? And so I already knew what she had told them. She abused me. I already knew that. But then they're like, hey, man, what's up? What are you doing? I'm like, I look at her and she's like, these guys are dangerous. Now, she's a dumb bitch. Excuse my French, she's a dumb bitch. But one thing is, like, she doesn't, like, if she's saying that, then they probably are, she only really hangs out with men that she thinks can protect her. So by her saying that means, at least the way I took it, was that they had weapons. Don't ask me how, just intuitively, that's what I thought. So they're like, hey, what are you doing here? I was like, hey, man, I'm just talking to my friend. And they're mean mugging me. And she's like, you gotta go. And I was like, wow, are you fucking kidding me? She's like, do you have the Suboxone? I was like, you know what? I had it in my pocket, took it out, threw it on the pavement, and I was like, you know, if I'm giving you this, pick it up like the whore that you are. And she just looked at me like, how could he talk to me like that? I went out of my way to be nice to you, and you fucking set me up with, you know, fucking Adolf's henchman bullshit. So they see that I threw something on the ground. I don't know if from where they're probably like 30 feet away from me, probably a little bit long, you know, more than that. And they were on this porch that had like a yellow porch light illuminating them. So I could see them, but I don't think they could see what I had thrown. They just saw that I'd thrown something. Soon as I did that, I guess they took it as an act of aggression or something. I don't know. You know, she probably told them all sorts of crazy stuff about me. Oh, he would tie me up and he would hit me with miniature golf clubs and tell me how ugly I was. Which, of course, I never did. She'd come up with really creative shit like that I did that wasn't true. So they're already mad. She's probably fucking both of them at the same time. And they just start charging towards me after I throw the Suboxone on the ground. I look at her, I'm like, you didn't change one bit, did you? And I'm wearing my red backpack. Now I'm in reasonably good shape at the time. I'm doing burpees all the time with Jeff. Like I have good wind. I do smoke, but none, you know, regardless of that, I had good wind. So I just take off running. They're running after me. Now, this is a residential area in, I think, Reseda, which is in the San Fernando Valley, the porn capital of the world, by the way. It's where Boogie Nights took place, somewhere in the valley. And like I'm running, and you know, it's like when you're running from cops or when you're running away from somebody, there's so much adrenaline that you get tunnel vision. You know, all I can hear is the of like their shoes hitting the pavement, and I'm running, and my backpack is like just, you know, bouncing up and down, and I'm going as fast as I can. But this is a dark area. It's like one of those streets where, you know, one of the street's lights is like half working, you know, it's like kind of pulsating with like trying to work. So it's offering pretty much no light, which makes the entire block that I'm running on dark for the most part. So I'm like running into darkness, and I don't know this area. I'm not from there. I just got dropped off. I have no idea where I am, but I just keep running. Now, the further that I'm running into darkness, you know, and it's getting darker and darker after I get past that light that wasn't working. I look behind me just for a second. They're pretty close. They're maybe like 15 feet away from me, and I didn't know what to do. So I looked, and there was like a house to my left. I ran to the house, and I just started pounding on the door. It was like some fucking horror movie. It was like some Texas Chainsaw Massacre shit. I was like, help me, skinheads. Who the fuck's going to open the door for that? And of course, nobody opens the door. But lights go on there, and lights go on in other houses because I'm being loud. I'm pounding on the door. I looked behind me, expecting them to be right behind me. I spooked them. They're probably on parole or something, you know. And what skinhead's not on parole? If one of them slips through the cracks, makes it out of prison, they're on probation or parole. There's like not too many reformed skinheads out there taking horseback riding lessons with Sam. Like, hey, what's up, dog? I'll meet you at the ranch at 7. Oh, yeah, I'll be there. White power. That shit doesn't happen. So, because the lights went on in the neighborhood, it freaked them out. Now, I'm in a weird position myself. You got to remember, I'm on federal probation at the time. You can travel outside of your area. You can travel outside of your county. You can travel outside of the state. You can travel outside of the country if you have permission. I never would ask permission. When I first got out, I played by the rules, and I would always, you know, sign up for a travel pass like 2 weeks ahead of time, and you have to like write your itinerary, the hotel that you're staying at, or the friend's house you're staying at, wherever you're going. And I used to play by the rules, but after I relapsed and after I'd gone to prison on a violation, I definitely wasn't playing by the rules anymore. So there was a real possibility that if cops got called for any reason and I got ID'd, they were going to determine that I was, it was police contact. It doesn't automatically notify the federal probation department when you have contact with the state level. We talked about that when I initially got arrested for pimping and pandering. Um, you know, I knew that if my dad bailed me out quick enough that I could get out of jail without them putting some sort of probation or parole hold on me, because they don't notify them immediately. Now, I've heard that they like check like court dockets once a month or like cross-reference them to see if you've been arrested. I don't know if that's true. But the fact of the matter is I was out on bail. My PO was like that close to just throwing away the key with me. I mean, he'd had it with me. He knew that that dirty for heroin was a dirty for heroin. It wasn't what I said it was. Oh, it's Percocet from the hospital. I have like claw marks on my face from being all gout out. You know, it's so weird. If I use heroin one time, I look like a straight. I could be sober for like when I relapsed after having 3 years. Sober for 3 years. I did heroin one time and I broke out with acne, and then I'll start clawing them. So there are these big like gaping wounds. It looks like it looks artistic almost. And I've posted pictures. I'm not exaggerating. You've seen pictures of how I look. It looks hardcore. I'm just like, I look like a fucking, I don't even know I don't even know like a term for that. So he knew, and taking all that into account, here I am. I'm outside of my county. I got two skinheads running after me because I'm an idiot because I was trying to do her a favor. And the thing that's on my mind is now that I've pounded on the door, the lights are going on. Now, essentially, I'm breaking the law, even though I'm not. Like, I don't know if I have police contact, if they'll ever find out about it, but I'm not trying to roll the dice at that point. I just found out Karina's pregnant. I have so much going on, like possibly the show deal. I don't know. There's just a bunch going on. So now I'm in a weird position because they leave, but I can't see. It's so dark that when I look in my I like take a panoramic look, from where I'm at. I'm standing in someone's property, mind you. Their lights had already come on. They're probably standing there in their whitey tighties with a fucking shotgun. Like, Martha. There's another one of them goddamn drug addicts in the front. Does he got tattoos? Uh-huh. And they've been up for 7 days on meth. They just happen to be peeking out the blinds, and they just see me with my gay red backpack, like, skinheads. How does that look? So I know I have to get out of there as quickly as possible. So I go, and it's weird because I go, walking out to the street is almost like swimming in the ocean where that a shark can just grab you at any moment. Not saying that that's likely in an ocean. The odds are in your favor, but it's that kind of feeling, when you're swimming in the ocean, if you're swimming far, like to the buoy, at least I always get in my mind that a shark can just grab me. The same kind of feeling because I'm walking into darkness and they can be in any direction. I didn't see what direction they went. Therefore, whatever decision I make is a gamble. And I have the added stress that there's possibly police coming because I not only did I pound on the door, I screamed like a straight bitch. Help me! I sounded like my ex-wife. I turned into her. She probably put some witch spell on me or something. So I knew that it was just like, I knew that I was in a bad situation any way that I went. So I walk out to the street. I look both ways. Can't see shit. So I'm like, probably go the way that they were chasing me from. There's probably less likely if I walk back towards the house that they're there. If they're trying to get me, they probably went the other way and they're hiding. So I start walking that way back towards the house, which, looking back, what a stupid fucking decision. Why would I go back to where they live? I just thought I was like, they're not going to expect that, bitches. So I'm walking and I just see that distinct, little glow of a lighter when someone's lighting a cigarette in darkness, and you just see this little uh, balloon of a flame kind of go out like this, and you can see them. You can see it like lighting their face. Now they're pretty. I think they're standing a few houses from the house that I originally saw them at, their house. But I saw, just for a flash second, I saw that happen in front of me, and it was pretty far, meaning if I had kept going in that direction and I hadn't seen that, I would have walked right back into the trap. It was foolish of me to do that. I should have known that. So I'm like, I knew that they were there. I knew they couldn't see me, or at least I thought they couldn't. Who knows about skinheads? They probably have some antique like night vision goggle with like, swastika like prisms coming out of it or something. Who knows what Nazis have? Have like some like green canteen. So I just kind of start walking slowly into the dark, into the abyss of the street, just straight blackness. It was insane. And the further that I was walking, the darker it was. So anything can happen at this point. Also, going that direction, now I'm walking back towards the house that I was banging on the door. If cops are going to come, they're going to come from, now I'm fucked. If they come that way, if I go that way, they're going to kill me. And I kind of had to like weigh my options. I was like, okay, what's worse? Jail, which means prison, because I was out on bail and I was on federal probation, or getting beat up by these two hillbilly skinheads that my ex-wife has coerced into beating me up. Now, it was almost equal, but I didn't want to give her that satisfaction, and it was an immediate thing. I'm a true dope fiend. I mean, here, if you have this, you can have this cookie now, but if you wait an hour, you can have 10 cookies. I'm eating the cookie every time. And so I kind of looked at it the same way. Okay, well, they'll beat me up right now, but if I go and I get arrested, I don't know, there's a chance that maybe I won't be arrested. Maybe I can talk my way out of it. So I keep walking and walking and walking, and I have no idea what kind of neighborhood this is because it's residential. And as I'm walking, you can see that there's houses that have lights on. Some of them have lights in front of them. Some of them have bedroom lights that are on. But the road is completely dark. And I walked for probably 10 or 15 minutes, and it never got light. It was just dark, dark, dark. And then I got to this like kind of bridge thing that like went over a creek. Right when I got to that, I decided that the best course of action was to go down into the creek and just walk for a while in the creek just to get out of the neighborhood. Like that would throw them for a loop because I didn't know if they were going to get in their car, come get me. I mean, the whole thing made sense to me at this point. I was like, okay, okay. She tricked me. She must have known that I was in LA. She probably looked at my Instagram. I probably posted something like, an Instagram picture where I'm like, LA. People do stupid shit like that on Instagram, and it says like you're located, like, hey, if you're looking for me, this is where I am. So she probably saw that, and she's probably like, I bet I can get that fucking pervert over here. I bet if I tell him I need drugs, he'll want to see me. I was not it at all. I just felt bad for her. That's it. When I was a heroin dealer, I'm so sick. People would tell me that, pinned eyes and shit. And I always was pretty compassionate, and I'd work with people. I wasn't like one of those cutthroat ass. No, you owe me $7, bro. Not you're lucky. No bueno. Do not pass go here. Stay sick, brother. I wasn't that kind of guy. So I go up this creek, and I'm just thinking, what a fucking idiot I am. I mean, serves me right. I deserve that, but I'm still not out of the clear. I still have no idea what I have no idea where I am, what I'm doing. I'm relatively sober. I mean, just on Suboxone. And finally, I take this creek all the way up to a freeway underpass. I climb up, and I'm like, by some freeway. I think I was by the 101 or something. Climb up, and I call Zach. I'm like, oh my God, these skinheads just try to kill me. He's like, what do you mean? And I was like explaining the story, and he's like, oh my God. And he's like, look, just drop your location. I'll get you an Uber home. So he ends up getting me an Uber back to Santa Barbara. And, it was just, I don't know what I was thinking, um, you know, in that situation. I mean, half of it was I wanted to get her to sign that paper, but I should have known better. She's not trustworthy. What was I thinking? So I get back to Santa Barbara, and I don't know if we went into it last video, but you know, uh, Zach had made an agreement with Jeff that he was going to pay rent for me. So I was going to have my own room at Jeff's house. Zach was really cool. It was like the second that I met him, my life started, improving quite a bit, financially. And he was just a good guy. And we were vibing creatively. It seemed like it was going to be a long lasting partnership, but he was really supporting me at the same time. So everything just looked different. I mean, it went from me like, smoking refries, second chance lottery shit, squatting in abandoned houses, to having my own room at my best friend's house, and like having spending money. And he was always cool like that. He'd be like, hey, how you doing on money? I'm like, I got like 40 cents. I don't know. I'm all right. He's like, I got you. Here, I'll PayPal you something. Send me like $500. I mean, like he was really helping me out. He was very successful for where he was at. So around this time, something kind of funny happens. We had gone to pitch meetings, and like I said last time, they would look at the marketing deck, they would see my story. They'd be like, wait, whoa, international drug cartel, novelist, pimp. Well, this guy sounds like a piece of shit. This is way more valuable. Why don't we do a documentary about how much of a piece of shit that guy is? Zach's like, yeah, why don't we do a documentary about what a piece of shit you are? I was like, and I wasn't like really feeling it in the beginning there. And we tried to pull our resources together to get meetings. And like I said, we talked to Vice, we talked to a number of production companies that broker deals to other networks, stuff like that. And one guy that I knew was when I worked at Asher's company. I knew this guy named Steve. Now, Steve, this whole thing is ridiculous. Steve was like 55, long gray hair, glasses, Pink Floyd, diehard Pink Floyd fan. That's kind of like what we bonded. And he was an insane artist, it's an insanely talented artist. He did the courtroom sketches of O.J. Simpson during the O.J. case, and he would do set design for like R. Kelly. R. Kelly. Yeah, fuck R. Kelly. But he worked with a lot of big people, and he had done storyboards for a number of movies. I think he did The Dark Knight, like major movies. He would do. I think he did The Dark. I don't know. He did one of the better Batman movies that had come out in recent years. So he had like a lot of accomplishments as an artist, and he was also like super plugged in the film industry. But he was like the kind of guy where he would get, $6,000 for doing the storyboard for this particular film. Then he'd blow it. So he needed some like stable income, and what he had found was the same kind of shit that I was doing. He was kind of like a career telemarketer, and he would always manage rooms. That was his thing. Smoked weed, managed rooms, loved Pink Floyd, and that's about it. So he had just gotten a new house down in the valley, pretty much where my ex-wife, like right around the area that my ex-wife was living at. I think it was Tarzana is where he was living. And he was living with some guys that work for Disney. So he was renting a room in this house, and everybody that was in that, it was a nice house, and everybody in there was in the industry to some degree. Now I called him, you start getting desperate. It's kind of like when it's like a Friday night at like 1:30 in the morning, and you're with your homeboys, and dude, we need some pussy. And you start calling it's like a fucking email scam that you're like just texting like everybody in your contact list, and like choice picks, and then it just goes like down, and then you get like more and more desperate. You're like, oh, here's this chick. She works as an operator from AAA. I don't even know what she looks like, but for some reason I have her personal cell. You think it'd be weird if I called her at 1:30? Friends were like, nah, run it, dude. That kind of thing. It's that's how I was in my early 20s. I'm sure that's how a lot of guys are. I mean, don't act like that's not how you were. It was the same kind of thing, but when I met like Steve was the equivalent of like just like a complete long shot, like a random like, oh well, I know this guy that I used to telemarket with. Yeah, he's he's drawing set designs for R. Kelly with secret fucking he's plugged up, plugged up. He's plugged up. He was plugged in with the film industry. So I called him and I told him what the deal was. I said that I had a sizzle, I had a marketing deck, and that I conceptualized an intellectual property and I was trying to sell it. And he was always just like super cool. He's like, oh, old stoner guys, oh, it's amazing. I was like, you don't know what I just said, Steve. He's like, I don't. Come over. I'm like, I'm in Santa Barbara. He's like, oh, I'm in Tarzana. Yeah, you talked like a fucking heroin addict, but that was just weed. It was like shitty weed. It was like weed from the 70s, like Maui Wowie, you know? Like he probably got like 100 pounds of when he was like in the 70s, and he's just like chipping away at this like stash of tie stick or whatever the fuck. He always had like this shitty old bud. He'd smoke out of a wooden pipe. He was like a classic like 70s dirtbag that was just transplanted in like 2017. So he says that he very much can get us in the room with a number of network people. He knows a bunch, and I don't doubt that this guy really does have connections like that. So he invites Zach and I down to come to his house and to pitch it to him, but he's gonna conference call this other guy named Dave, who he says is like he's an agent, and he's like a shark agent. That's what he told me. He's like, oh, my friend Dave, he's a shark. And he didn't really talk like Jack Nicholson. I'm not sure why I'm doing that to impersonate him, but he was just like a stoner that would he was kind of burned out. So we had a date set to go down and meet this guy. Now, of course, Zach lived in Long Beach. I lived in Santa Barbara, and at one point, Zach paid for me to take a train down again to LA, and I was going to stay at his place, even though his girlfriend like hated me, as we talked about. And then the next day, we were going to go to Steve's house, maybe try to put another couple meetings in there too. So when I got there, he took me to Venice Beach to go to a show called the Nine Club. It's a YouTube show. It's a skateboarding show. It's a couple pro skaters, and like this is at their house, and they've converted it into some sort of like talk show looking studio. I grew up skating, and it was really cool to go there and like be on that set pretty much. I mean, it was like being on the set of a show, but I was sitting on a couch, and Zach and I were just like going over stuff, and they were filming in like the other room, but we could put headphones on and like connect it to some sort of system, and we could listen in to the show as they were filming it. And that show's pretty popular. It's called the Nine Club, and it's really entertaining. It's like old pros, and then it's like a talk show for skateboarders. So I got to meet those guys. Like I said, Zach was really connected into the pro skater world. Next day, all of the meetings that we had lined up fall through except for Dave. It was the only, or Steve. Steve is the only person that hadn't flaked on us, surprisingly, because he's like the biggest burnout I know. So we go to his place, and it was clear that he had just moved in. There was like no furniture in there, and there are like cardboard boxes everywhere. And I was like, man, this is a really, really cool place. I was like, how long you been here? A couple weeks or something? He's like, oh no. Oh no. About a year. I was at a year. The fuck? Why don't you take stuff out of the boxes? He's like, they're labeled. I was like, what the fuck? Weirdo. So we go outside, we talk to him. He's smoking weed, and he's like, check out this tie. It's always hard to like understand him. So he gets on this conference call with this guy Dave, who he's the shark agent, some sort of guru, allegedly. And we get on the phone, and he sounds pretty good on the phone. He's like, hey, how you doing? My name is Dave. What's your name? I'm like, Ryan. He's like, heard you got a really sexy intellectual property, do you? And I was like, yeah, I do. Pretty much couldn't get any sexier. He's like, tell me about it. Tell me what it looks like. I was like, what do you mean? He's like, figuratively, tell me what it looks like. And I was like telling him about the show, and he's like, okay. Do you know Quentin Tarantino? I was like, no, why the fuck would I know? If I knew Quentin Tarantino, I wouldn't be talking to Steve. What the fuck? And he's like, okay, you don't know Quentin Tarantino. We're going to change that. We're going to fix that. We're going to fix that. I go, okay, great. And Steve's like, puts the phone down because he's holding up the cell phone. This is like, he's calling his friend and it's just on speaker. Puts the phone down. He's like, told you. And I'm looking at Zach, and me and Zach are like, damn, Quentin Tarantino, like, he's just coming out swinging, huh? Okay, I'm down to meet Tarantino. I loved his movies. That's great. So he's like, okay, I work at my office. It's in, I forget where it was. It was in like Century City or something. It's like, my office is in Century City. When can you come down for a meeting? I was like, I don't know. I mean, when are you available? He's like, early next week. I was like, okay, great. So the meeting with Steve was basically just him introducing us to his connection, Dave. And of course, Steve now felt that he was entitled to a percentage of the show if we ever sold it. It's just how that industry is. So we set up this meeting for like the next week, and Zach can't make it, and Zach's like, oh, definitely go down there. He's like, that's a great opportunity. And I was meeting him that time. I was meeting Quentin Tarantino. So I end up going with Karina. She goes down there with me. That particular day, my mom had let me use her car because now I was living with Jeff, and I'm kind of turning it around. I'm not as completely reckless as I had been, like drinking and bringing over girls and sneaking Karina into the house. So my mom's like rewarding me for my good behavior. She lets me use the car once in a while, especially for something like this. It's like a business venture. So I go down there, and he has me meet him at some, like, I don't even know what it's called, some sort of club, like I don't even know. It's like a glorified cafe, but you have to be a member to go there. I forget what it's called. Um, it's kind of like if you've ever been to the red carpet club for United Airlines, like at the airport, where you go in and it's like a lounge and you can charge your phone. There's a bar. It was like that kind of place, but it was just like on the corner somewhere in Century City. So we get there, and it looked fancy, and we see him. Karina's in there with me. She has her little Yorkie dog with her, and we see him, and he looks like, I don't even know how to. He looks like a fucking pedophile. He looks like a child molester. He has like gray. He has this creepy gray hair. Like, he's going bald, so he just has like a couple like loose hairs, and he has like some crazy gray like ponytail, but it's just like the remnants of his gray hair, like kind of like sticking out of the back, and it's all. It looks crazy. It looks like he burned his head or something, and the white crazy ass hair is like all he had left. And he was wearing these like little glasses. And he's like, oh, Steve didn't tell me that you guys were beautiful. This is the first thing he said. I was like, whoa, what the fuck? It was super awkward. Like, it was like, you could tell he was like undressing Karina with his eyes. He's like, please sit down. Do you want anything? This is my clubhouse. And I was like, yeah, can I get a Coke? He's like, yeah, do you have a debit card? I was like, I have to pay for the Coke? He's like, well, yeah. It costs money. Take my debit card out. I was like, okay, here you go. And he like just waves to the to the guy at the counter. The guy comes over. He's like, hey, I'm gonna get a Coke for him, this beautiful young lady, and get me a Sprite without ice. You know what I like, Robbie. Gives him a little wink. I was like, did this motherfucker really just take my debit card and order himself a drink, me a drink, and my chick, and act like he's the one that's fucking paying for it? What the fuck? Who does that? And he looks at me and he's like, hey man, thanks. I was really thirsty. He's like, so let's get into stuff. He pulls out this like old briefcase. It's like, faux gator skin. It's like the sleaziest fucking it looks like something you'd buy at like a thrift store. It's all like coming apart. There's like little holes with like it just looked ridiculous. And so he takes it out and he has like these old like I don't even know how to describe them. It's like it looks uh like how a PowerPoint presentation would look, but it's like Xerox copied and it's like old, like the styles like from like probably like the late 80s or something. And it's like talking about like film financing. And he's like just shows it to me. He's like, check that out. Have you ever seen that? It's called bridge financing. Do you know what that means? I was like, no. I was like, I don't really know anything about the film industry. He's like, but you have a film deal, right? I said, well, yeah. He's like, oh, let me tell you who I represent. I'm an agent. I also do a little producing on the side. You ever heard of a guy named Michael Levin? I think that was, I don't even remember what his name is. I was like, no, who's that? He's like, who's that? He's produced arguably some of the biggest films of all time. I'm like, really? He's like, oh, yeah, absolutely. I'm like, well, what films are those? He's like, Die Hard. I was like, really? He's like, well, Die Hard 2. I'm like, the one at the airport? He's like, yeah. I was like, that one fucking sucks. I won't be proud of that. Okay, what else did he? And he's like, Lethal Weapon 4. It was like all shit like that, right? I don't even know if these, I know Die Hard 2 was for real. I forget what the guy's name was, but that's one of the movies that this guy actually had done. And this was his only client. I'm looking at IMDb. You can look at people's credits. This guy hasn't produced a movie since like 94. It's 2017. I'm telling him that. I'm like, Dave, the guy hasn't produced a movie for like 20 years, bro. What is this? And he's like, well, hold on. Somebody that caliber doesn't have to make money. It's called residual, baby. That's what this guy's work. It's residual. Do you know what that means? So, of course I know what that means. I'm not a moron. I don't really know how the film industry works, but this guy, I'm telling you, Dave, this guy's not very impressive. Who else do you represent? He's like, just this guy. But let me tell you, I shared an elevator with him once. Like it was some punchline. I was like, what the I look at Karina, and Karina's like so pissed. She didn't want to go down there anyway. And she's so mad that I dragged her down here for this shit, for the 1980s PowerPoint presentation. And he's telling us like how his only client, his one and only client produced like some action movies that had like 20 years ago. He's like, I'll say it again. I met him in an elevator. I was like, dude, can you stop like talking so esoterically? Like, what do you just say what you fucking mean? He's like, I met him in jail. He says it loud where like everybody at this, like, there's like, symphony music on. They all like look at him suddenly. Like right away, you could tell he was like some weirdo. He's like, I met him in jail. And now I'm his agent. Total kook. I was like, just like, oh, this checks out. Steve has me come all the way down here for this. So anyway, so we end up talking for a while, and he says that he's good friends with Danny Trejo, and he's also good friends with Quentin Tarantino. He's like, well, I don't represent them, but Tarantino and I was like, how did you meet him? In an elevator? He's like, please. Tarantino doesn't ride elevators. He would always talk like in these fucking riddles. It's like the most. I don't know if you know people. It's annoying though. So we end up leaving. Like, you know, Karina's like playing footsie with me, like pretty much like, hey, it's time to go. You know, it's time to go. So I tell him, I'm like, all right, man, like, you know, my girl's pregnant. We got to get out of here. But hey, it was nice meeting you. He's like, hey, real quick, do you think you can give me a ride to the food bank on 7th in Los Angeles? Some like he gave me some address like downtown LA. It's like 5 p.m. Like it's rush hour traffic. Take us like 2 hours to get each way. I'm like, I like straight up, I was like, no, sorry. Why are you going to a food bank? He's like, oh, I do volunteer work there. I was like, oh, that's cool. He's like, yeah, but I have to be there before 6:30, man. I was like, well, what happens if you're not? He's like, oh, then they won't let me do volunteer work anymore, which obviously meant that he was had to go to the food bank, which I mean, I don't hold that against anyone. I was shopping in a food bank 8 months ago, 9 months ago, right when I got out of prison, because I had to, because we had no fucking money. But it was kind of weird that this guy was like trying to, I don't even know what he was trying. Oh, he was trying to tell me that he had to introduce me to this network of people that consisted of one person, the producer guy of action movies. But he claimed that he was good friends with Quentin Tarantino. So I was like, you know, and hey, Hollywood's a weird place. Once in a while, somebody of that caliber is friends with like the kookiest person, and it's just I don't even know what, like, maybe they knew him for a long time. So I was still like, okay, you know, if Steve introduced, because you know, why would Steve give me this guy if he's like this much of a fraud? He's hanging out at some like probably made these people at this clubhouse like feel bad for him and just let him lurk there with this little alligator briefcase. But he was a total fraud. But I was thinking maybe he knew Tarantino. So anyway, so I end up giving him a ride. I don't remember where it was, like a bus station or something. I was like, I can take you to the bus station. He's like, oh, great. Can't miss my volunteer work. I was like, yeah, for sure. Drop him off. We leave. We actually found one of the best Chinese restaurants I've ever eaten at. Random fun fact for that trip. On the way home, we found it. So now I have this guy, Dave, that's like calling me all the time. He just won't shut up, wants to talk. And he says the most outlandish shit. He'll call me and he'll be like, Ryan, what is it today, Dave? You'll never guess who just called me. Who, Dave? China. The pro wrestler? The female pro wrestler? The country. And I just like burst. I just started laughing. I was like, what the fuck? What do you mean the country of China called you? He's like, it's not a joke. Are you still friends with Jim Hulse? Jim is the guy that he was the screenwriter of Fight Club, who would ultimately we'll get to him, but he's a good friend of mine, and he would jump onto the documentary project, started getting involved with it shortly after this period. But when we had that meeting initially, I told him that I was friends with Jim Hulse. I was like one of the only names that I knew in Hollywood at that time. And as soon as he heard Jim Hulse, his eyes just lit up. Really? What has he written? Like he didn't even know who he was, but like, oh, you know somebody? I was like, he wrote Fight Club. Felt like the guy was like gonna have a stroke. So anyway, so he tells me that China, I swear to God, I put this on my son. This is a true story. He called me and told me that China had called him. He's on an Obama phone, by the way, you know, the kind that they give homeless people. Like, I'm not talking shit about homeless people, but like the thing, I'm just trying to explain how outlandish and out there this guy was. I go, so what did China say, Dave? He's like, well, they need a big name director. I know that Jim Hulse knows David Fincher because he wrote Fight Club, and David Fincher directed it. China has $2 billion for me right now. I swear he said that. I was like, what? It became an inside joke with Zach and I. Where like I'd call Zach, yeah, I'd like blow him up, and he'd call me like, "What, Ryan? It better be urgent." I'm like, dude, China just called, and then we'd both start. That was like one of our big inside jokes. But like this guy was just off his rocker, he'd call and say stuff like that. So, I'm living at Jeff's now. Jeff and I are getting into like a good workout routine, and right around this time, I called Jim, the guy I was just talking about, screenwriter of Fight Club. And, we had met through mutual friends years before. He has a lot of literary friends, and I was like in the literary world. So that's how we met, in that, group of people. And he kind of became a mentor to me, when I was getting my film deal for Wasting Talent, I would call him for like a consultation. I'd be like, hey, this is what's going on. And he would give me good advice. Always good advice. I mean, he'll tell you things that you don't want to hear, but he's like the sweetest guy in the world. And really he's mentored me throughout all of this, and really helped educate me with how to like carry myself with like famous people, which I know sounds silly, but sometimes some of those people are intimidating, and like I just don't want to look like I'm not cool. I don't want to look like a total lame to these people. So I can call him, and like those are the kind of conversations we can have. I'm like, oh, I'm gonna be with so and so, and he'll just tell me really good advice, like how don't be yourself. No, I'm just kidding. He didn't say shit like that. But like I'll ask him stuff like, hey, if I bring up this, is that considered like uncouth in the film world? Stuff like that. Like he would teach me etiquette, and he taught me a lot about screenwriting as well. So I told him about the fact that I was working with this guy, Zach, about, I told him about the show Resurrection. By the way, the pilot, like, or the sizzle for Resurrections on on Patreon. And I'm going to put some conversations I have with this guy, Dave. Jeff recorded a bunch of conversations I had with that guy. They're so, he's out of control. I'll post those on Patreon probably tomorrow or something. But, I was telling Jim about Zach and in the show, and I was telling Jim how everybody was kind of encouraging me to do a documentary about my life. Jim was like, "That's a great idea. Your life is very interesting." He's like, "I think that it would do well." I was like, "Really?" I'm like, having him say that made me look at it a little differently, because like, at first one of the other things was like, all I have is a bunch of footage of me like smoking crack. I got dick shots, more crack, heroin, me like being verbally abusive to women. That's like it. Me like doing a kickflip in a parking lot, and I'm like 11. No, most of my childhood. But I was thinking that my life wasn't interesting enough for anyone to care about a documentary. But having him say that it was a good idea made me think completely different. That's kind of like what made me change direction. And it just kind of popped. I was like, "Would you write it?" And he's like, "Yeah, yeah." We had like a few conversations. Then he finally was like, "Yeah, yeah, I'll write it." So like having him involved with it like brought it a lot of validity from the screenwriter of Fight Club. I couldn't believe it. It was like I felt like I had won the lottery. So, Dave, oh yeah, Dave was my agent now. Threw him a bone, I was like, "You're my agent." Not like I had any work being offered to me or anything. I was like, "You can be my agent. You can represent me on all the nothingness that's happening." And so he calls me shortly. So, and Zach was thrilled, by the way that we actually got Jim to be on board officially, I kind of just made it seem like he just decided on the phone. It really wasn't like that. He expressed interest, and then Zach and I had a conference call, and Zach did really well. Zach's a really likable person. We had good chemistry. It was a great call. We're laughing, we're making a lot of jokes, and by the end of the call, Jim was on board with it. He's part of the Writers Guild, so there were some obstacles. You have to pay a certain standard fee. It has to be a signatory company, and Zach's company wasn't yet, so it applied for signatory status. But around this time, you know, Dave called me, and he's like, "Hey, And I'd always be, what's up, Dave? Tarantino just called me. I said, really? Was he with China? Was it a conference call? China and Quentin? He's like, no, 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 no. No time for jesting. He wants to meet you. I told him about you. I was like, really? He's like, yes. Next Thursday at such and such actor studio. Ridiculous story coming up that we'll get into on the next video. I just want to get you guys something on Patreon. Like, comment, subscribe. I'm about to go through, this is kind of like when I start having my mental breakdown. It's going to start happening soon. And after that, we'll get to the prison. I know you get to the prison. And don't watch, if you don't like the series, just don't watch it. And I appreciate those of you that do. I mean, fuck, I can't. What do you think? I could just do like 30 minutes to an hour every single day about my life and just like have it all be. I try to make it interesting. Jeez. Like, comment, subscribe. Patreon.com/Ryan Leone. And be sure to buy Wasting Talent for $1 on Amazon, the Kindle version. I appreciate you guys. See you next time. Palabra.